All right, here we go. Let's talk about this moment. It was very hateful. It's very intentional, but that doesn't reduce how hurtful and painful it was for Belly. And that's the whole thing. Like, I feel like people often disregard Belly's POV because they're like, oh, well, either she's unreliable and therefore we can't trust anything she says, which is just really not true and dismissive. Or they're like, well, you know, like we care more about Conrad and therefore we're gonna justify his actions more than care about Belly's feelings and how Belly is being treated, which again, not great. That's why I guess is why. It was definitely it's hateful. Hateful is a pretty strong word. I wouldn't use the word hateful. It's cruel and it's very cold. He's doing it very deliberately though. It's very intentional. Like him being like, what is she doing here? You have no idea what you're talking about. And him not being able to look at her, all very intentional. From his POV, right? Like... this whole POV, like, what's unreliable, what's reliable, that whole bullshit. Anyway, but, like, he's doing that all intentionally to, like, push her away and to keep her at arm's reach, because he's like, I don't deserve her, she's better off, I gotta keep her away. But to Belly, and this is the thing, people don't recognize from her point of view to be fed that coldness, it's just cementing, oh, I should be ashamed of the way I treated him at prom and well, not at prom, at the funeral. Oh, this was right that he broke up with me. Everything that transpired was my fault and it was right. Everything that happened was my fault is right because this is the way he's treating me. So it's cementing everything that she thinks about herself, aka Conrad doesn't want me anymore. Conrad is really inconsistent. Conrad will sometimes be really happy, but sometimes be really low. And I don't know, I cannot predict what he's going to be, which again, I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again. As anybody, but especially as a teenager, and I work with teenagers in a therapeutic context, it's very inconsistency is very dangerous. Well, maybe dangerous is a bit extreme. It's very... It's not great for your mental health. And our brains are constantly seeking out consistency. And when we're met with inconsistency, we're like, we can internalize the inconsistency as being our fault. When really the way Conrad behaves is not Belly's fault. And it's also not her responsibility, as much people are gonna scream until they're blue in the face. Oh my gosh, I can't believe she didn't help him more. Oh my gosh, I can't believe she didn't realize how in pain he was. Oh my gosh, she shouldn't have invited him to prom. Like, it was her fault to not have this, like, really high level of awareness of his emotional needs that he himself doesn't even have. So, like, be so fucking for real. Anyway, so, but back to this original question. So... that's what it was. He was doing it intentionally, which for it's justified in him thinking that was his only choice, but it's not justified in the sense of how it made Belly feel and think and essentially put into motion this whole idea of, like, he doesn't want me anymore. He broke up with me. He doesn't want to get back together. He's not fighting for me, because he started off right off the gate as not fighting, whereas she specifically went out of her way to drop everything to go look for him and to go help him. So, like, out of those two, who do you think would be seen as the one who was fighting for the other person? I mean, obviously they're not a 1-for-1, and Conrad was at the house for reasons that they later find out, but I'm talking about the way they treat one another, and Belly's POV with the information that she's receiving from Conrad. And that's why, so, like, you can argue till you're blue in the face. Conrad really loves her. Conrad really wants her. That's not the information she is receiving. It's not what she's receiving. Even at prom, that wasn't the information she was receiving. At prom, he broke up with her. She was the one that said, just end things, like, just say it already. And he was like, say what? Because he was really confused. But nothing about his behavior told her, I don't want to break up with you. And so essentially it was his choices and his actions that broke them up. And that's why he says in that episode, I forget exactly what it is, but something along the lines of like, I shouldn't have ended things this way, aka I ended things. I did it. It was me. I'm taking accountability finally for ending things this way because I ended it. So it's like, it's no longer a question of is her POV unreliable, because if somebody else is agreeing with that narrative, it's no longer unreliable. It is the narrative. But anyway, now I'm on a tangent. But that's why he was doing it. Again, I wouldn't describe it as hateful. It's like, it's very cruel and it's very cold for an intentional reason. But the way she receives it, and I would too if I was her age. I mean, even my age, you'd be like, well, this person clearly doesn't want me anymore. And then later on, he's like at the pool and he seems fine. So it's like, it's very inconsistent, which again, inconsistency is it's not good to be inconsistent. Even if that person has very justifiable reasons for being inconsistent, that person who's receiving the inconsistency doesn't understand that. So like, fair enough from Belly. Because the way he treated her from the jump, not okay. Anyway, I hope that makes sense. But yeah, I'd be curious to hear other people's opinion.
We saw her deliberately hide the infinity necklace from him, so that makes me think like Jenny is intentionally showing us Belly's purposely withholding something. Like Jeremiah finds out about Christmas, he's gonna find out eventually. Like, he's going to find the necklace at some point, and it's gonna be a big deal.
Well, I'm just trying to think, like, no one else knows what infinity means to them. I don't know how Jeremiah would find out what it means if Conrad or Belly doesn't explain it.
You'd assume if you're dating someone for 2 years that she'd at least like disclose certain things about their relationship, right? Or like how far they've gone, but I don't know.
I really think that like Jeremiah is so sensitive to Conrad that Belly will not talk about, it'll be the same thing. I think that they're not going to talk about Conrad at all.
You know what? I think that you're right, actually, because I mean, like, she tries to talk about it on the beach. Like, she wants to be open and vulnerable with Jeremiah. He says no, like, do not. Can you not speak about him ever? So yeah, I think you're right, actually. But there's got to be some time when he finds out about it, and I don't know how, but
I wonder if like this is okay, maybe this is an unhinged idea. I don't know if this would happen ever, but like would Conrad write her a letter and like mention infinity or something and Jeremiah finds it and then he like puts two and two together? I just feel like there's got to be some mention of infinity that like makes him realize what it means.
we wanted to be like super sleuths. I mean, like, Jeremiah was present when Conrad poured the syrup on the pancakes. He was present when that memory took place.
True.
But he
Gotta
also
watch that flashback again and see if he was paying attention.
right. That's the thing, is I doubt that he was, but like, maybe.
I feel like that would take a lot. I'm not saying he's dumb or anything, but I do think like I feel like that would just be a lot of like jumping to conclusions to be like, oh, I remember when Conrad explained the concept of infinity to you. Therefore, like it means something special to the both of you. Maybe it was like a metaphor that you used for your relationship. Like I just feel like that's a lot of like piecing things together for Jeremiah.
I know. It's too much critical thinking for Jeremiah. But at some point he's gotta know.